Dean, you believe in God, right?
Yes.
And you believe that God, in some sense, can know the future?
Well, certainly some of it he knows.
How could he know any of it?
Well, so if God is all-knowing in the sense that he knows every fact that there is, maybe there's some things open about the future that he doesn't know, but he knows everything that's true, right? And he's all-powerful, so he can do anything that's consistent to suppose someone could do. Well, if he's rational, stable in his character and so on, he can certainly make decisions about what he's going to do. And if he decides that he's going to do something, he can know enough and has the power enough to see to it that it's brought about. So that's one easy way that God could know things.
Okay, so in that sense, you're making omnipotence, that God's all-powerful, to be the key element, because then God knows that I can make Dean Zimmerman do anything I want, so therefore I know it because I can make it happen.
Right.
But then you don't even need omniscience or God knowing stuff. You just need to be all-powerful.
Well, it's hard to see how you could, it's hard to see how you could be omnipotent if you weren't also omniscient, because
But you're
if,
not.
if you don't know certain things, your plans will go awry. You could bring it about, but if you see how they sort of go together, and a lot of theologians have argued that these are intertwined.
Okay, I mean, sure, but they're not two independent kinds of characteristics, because there's one model that says that God could be omniscient without being omnipotent. I mean, he could see the future and everything that's happening, even if a lot of it he can't control, and a lot of it goes badly for him. I mean, that's a possibility, right?
Yeah.
And at the other hand, he can have total blindness for the future, but when I get there, I can make it happen.
I can do whatever I like.
Right. So we have two separate things. But so when you look at omniscience and God knowing everything, do you see it in the sense of he knows it because he can make it happen, or because he really has some kind of special ability now to see it?
I don't think of him as having a special ability now to see what's out there, because I don't think it's out there. So, my view about the passage of time is that the present is very special, very real, and my great-grandchild doesn't exist in any sense whatsoever, although I will have one, perhaps. Maybe not. So because I think the future is a sort of realm of possibilities only, I think God just knows the space of possibilities for the future. And in that space, he can make decisions about what he will do if this or that or the other thing, so he can know a great deal about it, its contents. But if he leaves some things genuinely up to free agents, then I think there are facts that aren't settled yet.
So when you say God knows all the possibilities of the future, do you literally mean all possibilities, every conceivable possibility and interaction that could occur that God does know?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm thinking of God as traditionally conceived as really all-knowing. It's not. There's no limitations on his computational powers. His mind isn't implemented in a computer or in a giant brain or something. He has sort of basic powers of knowing
all
everything.
The branching possibilities that you can think of for the future, and the permutations among all of them. I mean, it's so many level of transcendent infinities. It seems absurd.
Yeah. Well, God is supposed to be transcendent and infinite, and this would be one respect in which He is infinite.
Yeah, certainly if that's true, I would agree. So you see God as His all-knowing, as knowing all the infinities of possibilities out there, but not knowing which of the branches will become actual.
Yes.
But knowing that He can force a few if He likes.
Right.
And maybe now He knows that He's going to force a few.
Yeah. So if so-and-so chooses this way rather than that way, God might say, well, I'm going to have to force something there, or we're going to go down a road that that I'm not willing to go down. So there may be a good deal of constraints on these possibilities, and yet much freedom as well.
Freedom
For us.
For us.
Yeah.
Is it fair to even ask the question how God knows about all these possible branchings? Is it, some computational effort? Is it just a kind of a rote all-knowing that you don't even have to do anything and it's just sort of omnipresent to you? It's all there?
I think of God's mind as nothing like ours, in the sense that it's not. God doesn't think about things by having concepts or images or something that somehow reflect or correspond to the things. God just latches onto things and facts, and so there's a sort of direct noetic grasp, cognitive grasp between God and the facts, where our knowledge is sort of fragmentary and mediated by
sense organs.
Yeah, and images and language. Now, I don't pretend to know really what God's mind is like.
And, you disappoint me.
Yeah, and I don't even pretend to have a decent grasp of the theological sort of alternatives here. But I do think that a being who answers to the description of the kind of Western absolute creator God who has these omni attributes isn't going to be thinking about things one at a time by having images or concepts and things like things that we have to fall back upon.
Does the thought that God has to sustain the universe on a continuing basis, not just create it, which is pretty much believed by most theists, that it's a continuing sustaining of the creation, could that have some sort of a relationship to omniscience, and by the very act of sustaining everything, you sort of also know everything through that direct?
Yeah. So there have been kind of mysterious doctrines about how God's knowledge and God's power, God's knowledge that there's a candle there and God's sustaining it are not distinct acts, right? Yeah. And maybe there's some truth in that, but it's hard to understand, that's for sure. At least this much seems true. If you're going to sustain everything, you better know what it's all like. You better know where it is.